Ladies and gentlemen, today I invite you to consider a truth that quietly shapes every moment of your life. Most people are not truly awake. Their eyes are open, their bodies are moving, yet inside they are drifting through a dream made of old fears, old habits, and old stories. They react before they think, believe every thought the mind offers, and surrender their peace to emotions that arise without warning. To wake up from this dream is not a mystical experience. It is a return to clarity, presence, and deliberate living. It is the rediscovery of your own mind. The dream is subtle. It appears when you replay the same worries, even though nothing is threatening you right now. It appears when you interpret someone's words through the lens of past pain instead of present reality. It appears when you aim for goals you never questioned, simply because society handed them to you. It appears every time you let the mind drag you into memories or imagined futures. The dream is not out there, it is in here, in the unquestioned patterns that shape your reactions. To wake up means to see clearly. It means to notice the stories your mind creates and recognize them as stories, not truth. It means to observe your thoughts instead of obeying them. It means to acknowledge emotions without letting them command you. Clarity doesn't come from controlling the world. It comes from understanding your inner world. When you see what is actually happening inside you, the illusion loses its power. Mastering your mind does not mean silencing it or fighting it. It means training it. It means cultivating awareness so that you can choose your response instead of being pulled by impulse. It means replacing limiting habits with ones that expand your strength. It means confronting your fears with presence instead of avoidance. Every time you pause instead of reacting, every time you breathe instead of exploding, every time you choose patience over panic, you take back ownership of your life. Life will challenge you, not to break you, but to reveal you. Every difficulty reflects your inner state. If your mind is scattered, the world feels overwhelming. If your mind is calm, the same world feels manageable. The situation may not change, but your experience of it does. This is the power of mental mastery, the ability to meet life with grounded awareness instead of confusion. But mastery does not come through sudden bursts of motivation. It comes through small, consistent disciplines. The quiet practices you repeat daily even when no one sees. 5 minutes of reflection, a moment of stillness before speaking, a commitment to honesty with yourself, a choice to break one small habit at a time. These simple actions reshape the mind far more effectively than rare moments of passion. They build strength the way water shapes stone, slowly, steadily, inevitably. Detachment plays a vital role in this mastery. Detachment is not escape, it is freedom. It is the ability to feel emotion without drowning in it, to face difficulty without collapsing, to care deeply without being controlled by outcomes. Detachment creates the space where wisdom replaces reactivity. In that space, you choose your response with intention, and transformation is the result of that choice. When you replace a habit that limits you with a habit that liberates you, you shift the trajectory of your life. The mind begins to cooperate rather than resist. Fear gives way to clarity. Doubt gives way to capability. Chaos gives way to focus. You become someone who is no longer pushed around by thoughts and emotions, but someone who uses them as tools. You wake up. And when you wake up, you stop living on autopilot. You stop repeating old stories. You stop letting circumstances dictate your inner state. You begin to participate in your own life with presence, purpose, and depth. You become fully alive, aware, and in command of the only thing you truly own, your mind. Wake up from the dream. Master your mind. Let your life unfold from clarity, not confusion, from choice, not habit, from awareness, not illusion. Clarity begins by observing the mind, not believing every thought. When you learn to watch your thoughts instead of immediately accepting them as truth, you create a space between stimulus and reaction. In that space lives understanding, emotional balance, and the ability to respond with intention rather than instinct. Most people live inside their minds the way a fish lives in water, unaware of the medium surrounding them. Thoughts arise continuously, automatically, shaped by memory, conditioning, habit, and emotion. Yet instead of noticing them as passing events, many people cling to them as if they were accurate descriptions of reality. A thought appears, I can't do this. I'm not good enough. People must think badly of me. and without any question, it becomes the lens through which the entire world is viewed. The mind becomes a storyteller, and we mistake the story for the truth. Observation interrupts this process. When you observe the mind, you turn toward it with curiosity. You begin to notice patterns, which thoughts arise under stress, which memories the mind revisits when you feel insecure, which internal voices speak the loudest when you are tired or overwhelmed. You start to see that the mind has a personality of its own, a momentum built over years of repetition. It acts like an echo chamber, replaying old experiences and predicting future harm even when none exists. By observing this activity instead of merging with it, you detach enough to see the difference between what is happening in reality and what is happening in your head. This shift is subtle but powerful. Observation transforms thoughts from commands into suggestions. Instead of hearing the mind say, "You will fail," and believing it, you notice the thought, acknowledge it, and investigate it. Is it true? Does it help? Is it simply a conditioned reaction from the past? Often you will find that the thought has no real foundation. It is just a leftover imprint from an earlier moment in life. When you observe thoughts this way, you begin to recognize that many of them are uninvited guests. They enter your mind from old fears, cultural expectations, or inherited beliefs, yet you give them authority they do not deserve. Clarity arises from recognizing this distinction. Thoughts are events, not identities. Feelings are experiences, not instructions. When you observe them with distance, you are no longer swept away by emotional storms or mental narratives. You notice anxiety rising, like clouds gathering, and you wait instead of reacting. You notice anger tightening the chest, but you breathe before expressing it. You notice self-doubt creeping in, and you remind yourself that thoughts are temporary, not permanent truths. In this space of observation, clarity blooms naturally. Clarity is not the absence of thought, it is the presence of awareness. The mind may continue to produce stories, assumptions, fears, and fantasies, but you no longer allow them to dictate your behavior. You see them for what they are: mental constructions, not reality. As a result, you begin to make decisions based on presence rather than impulse. You respond to life with calmness rather than haste. You become more honest with yourself, able to differentiate between what you truly feel and what the mind is merely projecting. This practice also enhances emotional intelligence. When you observe thoughts, you inevitably observe the emotions attached to them. You see how certain thoughts create tension, how others trigger joy, and how some generate insecurity. Instead of being controlled by these emotional waves, you begin to understand their patterns. This understanding leads to compassion for yourself and others. You realize that everyone is battling the turbulence of their own mind. You recognize that people act from their inner struggles more than from malicious intent. This perspective softens judgment and fosters patience. Observation is a discipline, and like any discipline, it strengthens with practice. At first, the mind will resist being watched. It will try to pull you back into identification, into the familiar habit of believing every story it generates. But with patience, the ability to observe grows. You begin to catch thoughts the moment they arise. You stop them before they form emotional chains. You learn to let them pass without clinging, just as clouds drift across the sky. Over time, this clarity becomes a way of living. You think, but you are not trapped by thinking. You feel, but you are not overwhelmed by feeling. You navigate life with a sense of inner spaciousness, able to see situations as they truly are rather than through the fog of mental distortion. And the more consistently you observe the mind, the more you uncover the quiet wisdom beneath its noise, the steady, grounded awareness that has been present all along, waiting to be rediscovered. The difference between dreaming and waking lies in awareness of inner reactions. In a dream, events happen and you respond without choice, without reflection, without understanding. A situation unfolds and you are swept into it, carried by emotions and impulses that seem unquestionable. When something threatens you in a dream, fear arises instantly. When something pleases you, you chase it. When something confuses you, you struggle. You do not pause to ask why. You do not analyze the feeling or examine its source. You simply react because the dream feels real. This same automatic pattern often governs waking life as well. even though your eyes are open and your body is moving through the physical world. When you encounter criticism, tension rises as if you were under attack. When expectations are not met, frustration appears before you even understand it. When uncertainty arises, the mind produces fear, and you respond as though the fear itself is reality. The body awakens each morning, yet the mind remains asleep, replaying old patterns, old memories, old habits. Awareness of inner reactions is what differentiates true waking from this dreamlike existence. Awareness means noticing what arises within you before it becomes action, before it becomes words, before it pulls you in a direction you would not consciously choose. When awareness is present, you sense the tightening in the stomach before anger emerges. You feel the shift in breathing before anxiety takes over. You catch the first thought of self, doubt before it spirals into discouragement. This noticing does not suppress emotions, it reveals them. It gives you the opportunity to understand your inner world instead of being ruled by it. Inner reactions are often faster than thought. They come from deep layers of conditioning formed through past experiences, cultural influences, and subconscious fears. Without awareness, these reactions create the illusion of inevitability. You might say, "That person made me angry," or "That situation stressed me out," as though the emotion were forced upon you. But the truth is that the event triggered something already inside you. Awareness allows you to see this connection. Instead of blaming the external world, you begin to recognize the inner patterns that generate your responses. This shift is the beginning of inner freedom. It is the moment you wake up from the dream of unconscious living. In a dream, there is no separation between the event and your reaction. Everything feels fused. In wakefulness, there is space. That space is awareness. It's the ability to witness the reaction unfolding and decide how to engage with it. When you feel hurt, you can observe the pain without immediately defending yourself. When you feel fear, you can acknowledge it without letting it dictate your choices. When you feel joy, you can experience it fully without clinging to it in a way that produces anxiety about losing it. This space is subtle, but it transforms your relationship with life. Awareness also reveals how many inner reactions belong not to the present moment, but to memories carried from the past. An innocent remark might trigger defensiveness because it resembles past criticism. A small uncertainty might create disproportionate worry because your mind links it to previous failure. Without awareness, these reactions blur the line between then and now. You are not reacting to the current moment. You are reacting to an old story your mind has repeated for years. When you wake up, you finally see the story for what it is, a memory, not a fact, and your reactions lose their grip. This awakened state shifts how you move through the world. You start to notice how often emotions arise without any real threat. You begin to question the mind's interpretations instead of obeying them. You develop the ability to respond instead of react. Responding requires clarity, and clarity comes from awareness. When you are aware, you can choose patience over anger, grounding over fear, understanding over judgment. These choices are not forced. They arise naturally when the mind is no longer clouded by automatic reactions. Awareness of inner reactions deepens self-understanding. You learn what triggers you, what calms you, what strengthens you, and what weakens you. You become familiar with the landscape of your inner life, seeing where emotions originate and how they move through you. This self-knowledge becomes a compass. It guides your actions, your decisions, and your relationships. It allows you to navigate challenges with stability instead of chaos. To wake up from the dream is not a dramatic awakening, it is a continuous practice of noticing. The more consistently you observe your inner reactions, the more clearly you see the difference between the world as it is and the world as the mind interprets it. And in that clarity, the automatic dreamlike responses lose their power, revealing a deeper, more conscious way of living that arises from awareness rather than instinct. Small, consistent disciplines shape mastery more than rare moments of motivation. Motivation is powerful but unreliable. It rises and falls like weather. It is intense, inspiring, and often emotional, but it lacks longevity. People often wait for motivation before they begin something meaningful, believing that they need a spark, a rush, or a wave of enthusiasm to carry them forward. Yet when that emotional surge fades, their commitment fades with it. They stop. postpone, or restart repeatedly. This cycle creates frustration and the illusion that they lack ability or willpower, when in truth they simply relied on the wrong fuel. Motivation is a visitor, not a resident. Discipline is what stays. Discipline, especially in small and consistent forms, is quiet and unglamorous. It does not feel heroic, it does not provide dramatic excitement. Instead, it builds habits cell by cell, layer by layer, moment by moment. Its power lies in repetition. When you practice something repeatedly, no matter how small the action, it becomes ingrained in your mind and body. It becomes automatic. A person who trains for 10 minutes a day will eventually surpass a person who trains for 2 hours once a month. The difference is not talent, it is consistency. Mastery is not an event, it is a process of accumulating hundreds, then thousands of small, deliberate actions. Small disciplines also bypass the resistance that large goals tend to create. When the mind sees a massive task, it often responds with avoidance or procrastination. The size feels overwhelming, and the mind's first instinct is to protect itself from discomfort. But a small task feels manageable. 5 minutes of practice, 1 page of reading, a short session of focused work, these require minimal emotional effort, allowing you to begin without negotiation. And once you begin, something shifts internally. The act of starting creates momentum. The small discipline might expand naturally, or it might remain small, but either way the habit strengthens, and the resistance weakens. Over time, small disciplines compound. Just as small financial investments grow through the effect of compounding interest, small daily actions accumulate into significant transformation. The person who writes a little each day eventually finishes a book. The person who practices a skill daily develops refinement that cannot be achieved through occasional intensity. The person who trains consistently gains strength that sporadic effort can never produce. The compounding effect of discipline is slow in the beginning, almost invisible, which is why many people overlook it. But its impact becomes unmistakable over months and years, turning ordinary individuals into experts in their craft. Small disciplines also cultivate self-respect. Every time you follow through on a commitment, no matter how small, you reinforce the belief that you can trust yourself. This self-trust becomes a foundation for greater challenges. You no longer question whether you are capable, your actions prove that you are. This internal confidence is far more reliable than external motivation. Motivation may come from a speech, a video, or an emotional moment, but self-respect grows from your own behavior. It grows from doing what you said you would do, even when no one is watching. The simplicity of small disciplines does not diminish their depth. They train the mind to focus, to persist, and to value progress over perfection. They teach patience, because mastery rarely comes in dramatic leaps. It emerges through steady, incremental refinement. They shape character, because discipline requires humility, the willingness to repeat the basics even when you crave advancement. And they create stability, because consistent action becomes a rhythm that anchors your life, even when circumstances fluctuate. Mastery demands presence. It demands that you show up repeatedly, regardless of mood or external conditions. Small disciplines make this possible. They remove the pressure to be extraordinary every day. Instead, they require only that you be present every day. When you are present, you improve. When you improve, you gain momentum. And progress, even slight progress, fuels a deeper commitment than motivation ever could. Many people chase big changes, imagining that mastery requires intense bursts of effort or dramatic turning points. But those moments, while inspirational, are not enough. They may ignite the journey, but they cannot sustain it. What sustains mastery is the quiet, steady, daily effort that often goes unnoticed. It is the practice done when no one applauds, the repetition done when no one observes, the persistence shown when no one encourages. These moments form the bedrock of skill, strength, and understanding. Small, consistent disciplines align with the natural rhythm of growth. Trees grow ring by ring, not in sudden explosions. Muscles strengthen fiber by fiber. Minds expand idea by idea. Mastery mirrors these natural processes. It is organic, cumulative, and grounded in repetition. And the more deliberately and consistently you engage in these small practices, the more mastery emerges as a natural outcome of your daily life, rather than a distant, unachievable dream. Every challenge is a mirror reflecting the state of your inner world. When life places you in difficult situations, those moments do not simply test your external abilities. They reveal the patterns, beliefs, and emotional tendencies you carry within. You may think a challenge is something that happens to you, but it is more accurate to say a challenge shows you what is happening inside of you. Your reactions, your interpretations, and the meaning you assign to events expose the state of your inner landscape. A calm mind experiences adversity differently than an anxious one. A confident heart interprets obstacles differently than a fearful heart. The challenge itself may be the same, but what it reflects back is unique to each person. When you encounter discomfort, frustration, or confusion, the immediate impulse is often to blame the situation. You might say the task is too difficult, the person is too unreasonable, or the circumstances are unfair. Yet if you pause and look deeper, you may notice that what you perceive as external difficulty is intertwined with internal assumptions or unresolved emotions. A challenge feels overwhelming, not only because of its objective nature, but because of the inner narrative accompanying it. If the mind tells you that you are not capable, the challenge grows larger. If the mind expects perfection, the smallest obstacle becomes unbearable. The mirror of challenge reflects these hidden inner expectations, showing you where clarity is needed. Challenges also reveal your emotional triggers. When you feel anger rising during conflict, the situation is not creating the anger. It is activating something already present within you. When anxiety surfaces in uncertainty, the situation is simply shining a light on internal fears that had not yet been explored. When sadness appears during loss or change, it reflects the attachments and expectations you hold. In this way, challenges function like teachers. They point to areas where healing, understanding, or adjustment is required. Without these external triggers, you might never notice the tension or beliefs stored within your mind and body. The mirror of challenge also shows the strength you may not realize you possess. When faced with difficulty, you might discover resilience that surprises you, creativity that arises under pressure, or patience that emerges in moments of need. These qualities often remain dormant until a challenge calls them forth. In this sense, challenges reflect not only your vulnerabilities, but also your capacities. They reveal both your wounds and your wisdom. They expose your limits while simultaneously expanding them. How you interpret a challenge determines what you see in the mirror. If you view difficulties as punishments or burdens, they will reflect fear, resistance, and frustration. If you see them as opportunities to understand yourself more deeply, the reflection becomes far more valuable. You begin to notice not just the pain, but the patterns beneath the pain. You observe how your thoughts shape your experience. You become aware of how your emotions influence your decisions. And you recognize the difference between the world as it is and the world filtered through your internal lens. Challenges can also illuminate your habitual responses. Some people react automatically with avoidance, others with aggression, others with self-doubt, and others with control. These reactions form early in life, often without conscious awareness. A challenge forces these patterns into the open, allowing you to see how you habitually respond when tested. If your mind tends to catastrophize, the challenge reveals it. If you struggle with patience, the challenge exposes it. If you have difficulty asking for help, the challenge makes it clear. These revelations are not signs of failure, they are invitations to grow. The mirror effect becomes most clear when the same type of challenge repeats. If you find yourself facing similar conflicts, similar disappointments, or similar emotional struggles, it suggests that the inner lesson has not yet been understood. Life tends to repeat the message until you learn to read it. Each repetition reflects a deeper layer of your inner world, urging you to look beyond the surface of events and into the structure of your thoughts, beliefs, and emotional responses. When you approach challenges with awareness, they transform from adversaries into guides. You begin to look inward before reacting outward. Instead of resisting the situation, you examine your reactions. Instead of blaming circumstances, you explore your internal landscape. This shift in perspective does not remove difficulty from life, but it changes your relationship with it. Challenges cease to be obstacles blocking your path and become instead windows through which you understand yourself more clearly. Through this lens, every challenge becomes meaningful. The situation itself may be uncomfortable, but the insight it offers carries immense value. You learn what needs to be strengthened, what needs to be softened, what needs to be released, and what needs to be embraced. You discover where fear still resides, where confidence is growing, and where wisdom has begun to take root. And as you continue to face challenges with this awareness, the mirror reveals a progressively clearer and more expansive inner world, allowing you to grow through each experience rather than be diminished by it. Detachment is not escape, it's the ability to choose your response. Many people misunderstand detachment, imagining it as withdrawal, emotional numbness, or distancing oneself from the world. They picture someone who avoids involvement, avoids feeling, or avoids responsibility. But true detachment is the opposite. It is not a retreat from life, it is a deeper engagement with life, one that is not controlled by impulses, fears, or automatic reactions. Detachment gives you the freedom to remain centered even when situations are turbulent. It allows you to pause, observe, and act with clarity rather than being swept away by emotion or instinct. When you are not detached, you are entangled with every reaction that arises within you. Anger appears and you become it. Fear surfaces and you obey it. Someone's comment triggers insecurity and you spiral into overthinking. Every emotion, thought, or external event pulls you in a different direction, and your sense of inner stability depends entirely on what happens around you. This is not freedom, it is reactivity. It is a life lived on the surface, constantly pushed and pulled by circumstances. Detachment breaks this pattern by helping you recognize that you are not the reaction itself. You are the awareness that notices the reaction. Detachment begins with observation. When a strong emotion arises, instead of collapsing into it or suppressing it, you notice it. You feel its presence in the body, you observe the thoughts it generates, and you become curious about its source. This creates a space between the emotion and your behavior. In that space lies choice. You can feel anger without speaking hurtful words. You can feel fear without avoiding necessary action. You can feel sadness without becoming overwhelmed by it. Detachment does not remove emotion. It prevents emotion from dominating your decisions. People often believe that being emotionally involved means reacting immediately and intensely. But involvement grounded in awareness is far more powerful. When you are detached, you can offer compassion without being drained. You can help others without absorbing their struggles. You can engage in challenges without being consumed by them. You remain connected, but not entangled. This balance allows for clearer communication, healthier relationships, and wiser decisions. You can listen without defensiveness, speak without aggression, and act without resentment, because you are no longer reacting from a place of unconscious impulse. Detachment also reveals the patterns that drive your responses. You start to notice how certain words, situations, or people trigger familiar emotional chains. You see how past experiences influence present reactions, how unexamined fears shape behavior, and how assumptions distort perception. This awareness helps you understand that many of your reactions are not responses to the present moment, but echoes from the past. When you detach, you break the connection between old conditioning and current choices. You give yourself the freedom to respond based on clarity, not memory. Choosing your response requires inner stillness, and detachment cultivates exactly that. It is a practice of returning to the present, grounding yourself in breath, awareness, and intentionality. Instead of living at the mercy of external events, you develop an inner anchor. This anchor allows you to stay steady during conflict, disappointment, or uncertainty. It allows you to see the situation without exaggeration or minimization. You begin to understand what actually requires action and what merely requires patience. This discernment comes from detachment, not avoidance. Avoidance, unlike detachment, is rooted in fear. It is an attempt to escape discomfort by pretending it is not there. Avoidance suppresses emotion, ignores problems, and disconnects you from reality. Detachment, on the other hand, faces reality fully. It acknowledges emotions without drowning in them. It sees problems clearly without magnifying them. It brings attention to what is true, not what is imagined. Avoidance shrinks your world, detachment expands it. Detachment also leads to greater self-mastery. When you can choose your response, you gain control over your energy, your focus, and your time. You stop wasting mental space on arguments that do not matter, assumptions that are not real, or fears that never come true. You begin to invest your energy in actions that align with your values rather than reactions that drain your strength. This creates a sense of direction and purpose, because your actions are guided by intention rather than emotion. In relationships, detachment prevents unhealthy dependency. You can care deeply for someone without losing yourself. You can support others without carrying their burdens as your own. You can set boundaries without guilt because you are acting from clarity rather than emotional turmoil. Detachment strengthens relationships by bringing stability, honesty, and balance. Ultimately, detachment gives you the inner freedom to meet life as it is, not as your fears or impulses interpret it. It allows you to be present in each moment with full awareness, choosing responses that reflect your true self rather than temporary emotions. Through this practice, you cultivate a mind that is calm, clear, and capable of navigating life with wisdom and intention. Mastering the mind means transforming habits that limit you into habits that liberate you. The mind is shaped by patterns repeated over time, patterns formed through experience, emotion, repetition, and belief. Some of these habits support you, helping you grow, focus, and act with clarity. Others constrain you, keeping you trapped in cycles of procrastination, self-doubt, distraction, or fear. Mastery does not come from force or suppression. It comes from understanding these patterns and intentionally reshaping them. It is a process of recognizing which habits drain your energy and which ones elevate it, then gradually shifting the balance through awareness and deliberate practice. Habits that limit you often go unnoticed because they operate automatically. They appear in your thoughts, your reactions, and your choices. You may catch yourself repeating the same emotional responses, thinking in the same unproductive ways, or acting out of the same insecurities that have been present for years. These patterns feel familiar, and familiarity often masquerades as truth. But a limiting habit is not a reflection of who you are. It is simply a reflection of what you have repeatedly practiced. If you have practiced avoidance, avoidance feels natural. If you have practiced overthinking, it becomes habitual. If you have practiced doubt, doubt becomes your default response. Recognizing this is the first step toward transformation. Transformation requires awareness. When you bring attention to your habits, you begin to see how they operate. You notice what triggers them, what emotions accompany them, and what beliefs sustain them. This awareness reveals the structure of the habit, and once you see the structure, you can begin to change it. You understand that a limiting habit is not a permanent flaw but a conditioned response. This understanding gives you the power to intervene. Instead of allowing the habit to unfold automatically, you create a moment of choice. In that moment, the shift begins. Replacing limiting habits with liberating ones is not done through sudden leaps but through consistent, intentional actions. A liberating habit is one that expands your possibilities instead of shrinking them. It strengthens focus instead of scattering it. It builds resilience instead of feeding avoidance. It nurtures confidence instead of reinforcing fear. These habits are cultivated through repetition, just like the limiting ones were. The difference is that this repetition is conscious. Every time you choose the new pattern over the old one, even in a small way, you reinforce the path of liberation. This transformation requires patience. The mind does not instantly abandon the familiar. It gravitates toward what it knows, even when what it knows is unhelpful. Old habits may resurface, and the mind may try to pull you back into old cycles. Instead of viewing this as failure, it can be seen as part of the process. Every time you redirect yourself, you weaken the old habit and strengthen the new one. Progress is measured not in flawless performance, but in repeated effort. Mastery is built through persistence, not perfection. Liberating habits often begin with simple practices. Learning to pause before reacting is one of them. This pause allows you to interrupt automatic patterns and choose a wiser response. Another liberating habit is focusing attention deliberately, rather than allowing distractions to dictate your direction. Practicing gratitude, maintaining discipline, engaging in self-reflection, and cultivating patience all serve as liberating habits. Each of these makes the mind more stable, more resilient, and more capable of clarity. As you transform your habits, you also transform your identity. The way you think about yourself shifts when your actions shift. You begin to see yourself as someone capable of change, someone capable of discipline, someone capable of growth. This evolving identity fuels further transformation. When you believe you can change, you create the conditions for change. When you believe you are trapped, you reinforce the limitations. Mastery of the mind includes mastery of these internal narratives. You learn to question beliefs that constrain you and replace them with beliefs that support your growth. This process also deepens self-respect. Following through on liberating habits builds trust in yourself. You prove, through consistent action, that you can guide your own mind. This trust becomes a powerful internal anchor, helping you navigate challenges with greater strength and stability. The more you invest in habits that uplift you, the more your life begins to align with your intentions. Ultimately, transforming habits is about reclaiming authorship of your inner world. Instead of being shaped by unconscious patterns, you become the one shaping them. The mind becomes a tool rather than a master, a servant rather than a dictator. Through this intentional transformation, you create a mental environment in which freedom, clarity, and purpose can thrive.